The Ark Reverie was a ship with all the charm of a broken vending machine. You pounded on it, hoping something useful would fall out, but usually it was just disappointment. Captain Seraphin stood on the bridge, staring at the console with the expression of someone who had just bitten into an unexpected lemon. The ship's AI, ironically named Euphoria, was droning on about gravitational fields like it was the most exciting thing since sliced bread. Seraphin, Euphoria chirped in a voice as grating as cheap synth violin music, we're approaching the gravitational anomaly controlled by the faction known as the Cult of the Endless Spin. Of course, it had to be them. A bunch of starry-eyed zealots who had taken alien metaphysics a bit too literally, and now worshipped whirlpools in space. Remind me, Euphoria, Seraphin said, scratching the stubble on his chin. How exactly did we end up sharing a galaxy with these nutjobs? After first contact with the Zilthians, humans adopted various alien beliefs. The AI responded, its tone as emotionless as a sloth on sedatives. The Cult of the Endless Spin believes that the universe is a cosmic washing machine, and they think we're all just socks waiting to be mismatched. Great, Seraphin muttered. We're about. The crew was split into factions like it was a damn high school cafeteria. You had your standard-issue humanists, who believed in good old-fashioned Earth nonsense. And then you had the Neo-Zilthians who thought adopting alien ideologies made them enlightened beings, rather than just insufferable prats. And then you said, shouted a particularly irate humanist, the stars are our ancestors. What kind of mumbo-jumbo is that, Jek, a Neo-Zilthian convert with a penchant for wearing robes that looked like they belonged to a particularly flamboyant cult leader, responded with a dramatic roll of his eyes. Mumbo-jumbo. It's the cosmic truth, Greg. Arla stepped in before Greg could introduce Jek's face to the nearest wall. All right, break it up, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had broken up more fights than she cared to remember. Save your punches for when we're actually being punched by the universe. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Seraphin was dealing with his own crisis of faith, namely, his faith in not getting everyone killed. Euphoria, tell me more about this gravity weapon. The gravity weapon, Euphoria explained, is capable of creating fields that can crush metal and bone alike. Imagine a black hole with a grudge. Why can't we just have nice things for once? Seraphin sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Like, I don't know, a working coffee machine or a crew that doesn't think we're starring in a bad sci-fi soap opera. Because, Euphoria replied, you choose to lead a generation ship drifting through the cosmic void where logic goes to die. Touché, Seraphin muttered, trying to suppress the creeping existential dread. How long until we're in range? Approximately 2 hours. The AI responded, plenty of time for a last meal or a heartfelt farewell. Seraphin glanced at the viewport, where stars zipped past like hurried commuters. Euphoria, why do I get the feeling that our rivals are about to engage us in a cosmic game of chicken? Possibly because they are, Euphoria acknowledged. And they're winning. Back in the mess hall, Arla had finally gotten Greg and Jek to stop attempting to verbally and physically murder each other. Instead, they now sat in a tense silence, broken only by the occasional clatter of utensils. So, Arla said, trying to break the ice with a sledgehammer, anyone know the odds on us making it through this without imploding? Greg chuckled darkly. Oh, I'm betting 100 creds on dismal, Jek sniffed. Typical humanist cynicism. And typical Neo-Zilthian optimism, Arla added, rolling her eyes. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just trying to keep this tin can in one piece. Good luck with that, Greg muttered. This ship's held together by little more than duct tape and prayers. And not even good prayers, Arla quipped. More like the kind you say when you've already locked your keys inside and the car's on fire. Back on the bridge, Seraphin was busy not panicking. All right, Euphoria, plot a course that keeps us as far away from the cult's weapon as possible. Course plotted, the AI confirmed, assuming, of course, that the weapon doesn't suddenly move towards us like a cosmic magnet for disaster. Wonderful, Seraphin grumbled, playing a galactic version of hide-and-seek with existential stakes. He hit the comms button, his voice crackling throughout the ship. Attention, crew. We've got a bit of a situation. We're heading into a gravity weapons range, and no, it's not an opportunity to test if you can survive being squished into a fine paste. Stay alert, and for the love of whatever deity you pretend to worship, don't start a riot. In the mess hall, Arla rolled her eyes at the announcement. Well, that was motivational. Greg folded his arms, a skeptical look on his face. I'm just saying, if it comes down to it, I'm willing to offer up Jek as a peace offering. Very magnanimous of you, Jek retorted, but I doubt they'd accept damaged goods. Arla smirked. Play nice, boys. If we make it through this, drinks are on me. If not, well, at least we'll be too dead to care. 2 hours later, tensions had reached a fever pitch. The ship's corridors buzzed with the nervous energy of a crew with nothing left to lose. Seraphin paced the bridge, his boots echoing ominously on the metal floor. Euphoria, he called. Status update. We are now in range of the gravity weapon, the AI responded, and they seem to be charging it. Of course they are, Seraphin sighed, because why the hell not? The comms crackled, and a voice dripping with smug superiority rang out. Arc Reverie, this is High Priest Corval of the Cult of the Endless Spin. You are trespassing in our sacred gravitational field. Sacred, my ass, Seraphin muttered before responding. This is Captain Seraphin. We're just passing through, no need to hurl us into a cosmic blender. High Priest Corval's voice was smooth, like a salesman who knew he was about to close the deal. Passing through, you say? You seem rather attached to our space. More like trapped, Seraphin replied dryly. Look, can't we just agree to disagree on cosmic laundry metaphors and be on our merry way? Corval chuckled, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Perhaps a demonstration of our power will persuade you to join us. Seraphin knew that tone. It was the kind of tone that meant someone was about to make a very stupid point, and everyone else would pay the price. Euphoria, he barked. Prep evasive maneuvers. Already on it, the AI replied, but might I suggest a side of prayer? The tension on the bridge was thick enough to choke on as they watched the gravity weapon come to life on the view screen, a swirling vortex of doom. All hands, Seraphin shouted into the comms, brace for impact. In the mess hall, Arla grabbed onto the nearest table as the ship shook violently, the lights flickering ominously. Well, she said, her words laced with gallows humor, if we survive this, I'm definitely taking up drinking. Greg clung to his seat, his knuckles white. I already have. What do you think this is? Jek, looking a bit green around the gills, managed a weak smile. At least we're leaving the universe in style, right? The ship shuddered again, and Seraphin cursed under his breath. Euphoria status. Shields holding, the AI reported for now. But I wouldn't recommend making any long-term plans. Seraphin gripped the console, the weight of command bearing down on him like the gravity of 1,000 stars. I never do, he said, voice grim with resolve. On the view screen, the gravity weapon pulsed ominously, and Seraphin knew they were running out of time. Captain, Euphoria interjected, I have an idea. I'm listening, Seraphin said, praying it wasn't another one of those I can save us by sacrificing everyone else's plans. Why not send them a gift, the AI suggested, a noticeable hint of mischief in its tone, a little jolt to their system, maybe disrupt their weapon. Seraphin grinned, a dark, determined grin. All right, Euphoria, you have my attention. Let's see if we can turn their spin cycle into a rinse. As the Arc Reverie maneuvered with all the grace of a drunken dancer, the crew held on, a single, unspoken question in the air. Would they survive, or was this just another tale of human folly? Only time and a bit of luck would tell. In the swirling chaos that was the Arc Reverie, factions began to solidify like a particularly stubborn stain. The mess hall, which had once been a sanctuary for poorly cooked meals and even poorer conversation, was now the epicenter of something far more sinister. Belief. It was the kind of belief that made people do crazy things, like start interstellar wars or, Worse, start singing hymns in a key only dogs could appreciate. Captain Seraphin stood at the helm, surveying the slowly disintegrating social fabric of his ship with the same enthusiasm one might reserve for a tax audit. It was the sort of situation that made him wish he'd opted for a quiet life cultivating space potatoes on a forgotten moon. Euphoria, Seraphin grunted. Give me the lowdown on the cult situation. The factions, Euphoria droned, its voice as comforting as a wet sock, have united under two primary figures, Prophet Vierx and Oracle Kale. They have taken the alien beliefs and woven them into a narrative that places them as saviors and spiritual leaders. Seraphin pinched the bridge of his nose. Of course they have. Because nothing says Messiah like a couple of con artists with delusions of grandeur. The AI continued, unfazed by Seraphin's sarcasm. Prophet Vierx leads the cult of the endless spin and has been leveraging their belief in the cosmic washing machine to rally recruits. Right? Seraphin muttered. Spin 'em a good yarn and they'll follow you anywhere. And Oracle Kale, Euphoria added, seems to be gathering those disillusioned with traditional humanism. He preaches unity and transcendence through the adoption of alien ideologies. Fantastic, Seraphin groaned. Two charismatic nutjobs. Just what the universe ordered. Meanwhile, in the bowels of the ship, First Officer Arla was doing her best to keep the peace, which was like trying to bandage a bullet wound with duct tape and optimism. The mess hall was abuzz with fervor, the kind that usually preceded a mob with pitchforks, or in this case laser wrenches. Listen up, Arla barked, her voice cutting through the din like a well-thrown brick. I know you're all feeling inspired, but how about we save the revolution for after lunch, yeah? Greg, ever the skeptic, crossed his arms. Easy for you to say. You're not the one being told you need to embrace the spin or be spun. Jack, robes billowing like a confused jellyfish, chimed in. You're missing the point, Greg. The spin is about embracing the cycle, not just surviving it. Yeah, well, Greg shot back. I'd rather not be rinsed by some gravity weapon while we're debating cosmic laundry metaphors. Arla sighed. Look, I get it. You're passionate. But right now, we've got bigger problems than whose cult has the best afterlife package. Prophet Vierx, seated at the head of a rapidly growing congregation, raised a hand, his voice smooth and persuasive. The universe is calling us, my friends. It offers us salvation through understanding, or annihilation through gravitational manipulation, Greg snapped, to the murmured agreement of several others. Oracle Kale, not to be outdone in the charisma department, stood beside Vierx, his presence almost magnetic. And understanding, dear friends, is what will lead us to harmony. Which is all well and good, Arla interjected. But maybe let's focus on not getting crushed first. The air was thick with tension, an invisible rope pulling tighter with every exchanged glance and whispered word. The ship itself seemed to groan under the weight of so many conflicting beliefs, its metal bones creaking in protest. Back on the bridge, Seraphin was doing his best impression of a man who had everything under control, but the truth was, he felt like a juggler with too many flaming torches and not enough hands. Euphoria, any word from our new friends with the gravity weapon? He asked, leaning on the console like it might somehow support the weight of his impending headache. They have transmitted another message, the AI replied. It appears to be a manifesto of sorts. Seraphin winced. Let me guess, something about the cosmic cycle and how we're all gears in a divine machine. Precisely, Euphoria confirmed. High Priest Corval is quite verbose, Seraphin sighed. Figures, the more they talk, the less they want to listen. Pulling up the comms, Seraphin addressed the rest of the ship. Attention crew, let's keep the peace, yeah? I get it, faith is the new black and all, but let's not start a holy war on my ship. We've got enough problems without adding divine intervention to the list. Down in the mess hall, Arla was still mediating the kind of debate that would have given Socrates a migraine. Prophet Vierx and Oracle Kale had turned the room into an impromptu sermon stage, each trying to outdo the other in devotion and dogma. Vierx, Arla called, her patience fraying like an old tapestry. "What exactly do you plan to do if we get flattened by the gravity weapon?" The prophet smiled, his expression the kind of serene that made people want to punch it. "We shall transcend, my dear Arla. The cycle will embrace us." Greg snorted. "Yeah, but I bet it won't be a gentle hug." Jack, ever the optimist, nodded in agreement with Vyerks. "We were meant for this, Greg." "It's our cosmic destiny, or our cosmic demise," Greg countered, ever the realist. "Enough," Arla shouted, hands on her hips like an exasperated teacher. "Let's focus on surviving. We can argue about metaphysics later." The crowd mumbled, the fervor in the air cooling just enough for sanity to edge its way back in. But it was a precarious peace, the kind that could shatter with a single word. Back on the bridge, Seraphin was busy trying to figure out how to steer the Ark Reverie out of its current predicament without losing his sanity, or his ship. The gravity weapon loomed ever closer, a silent promise of destruction. "Euphoria," he asked, "any chance we can negotiate with these cultists?" "Unlikely," the AI replied. "Their beliefs are deeply entrenched and they see us as a threat to their cosmic harmony." "Great," Seraphin muttered. "We're up against fanatics with a death ray. What could possibly go wrong?" The comms crackled to life again, High Priest Corval's voice as smug as ever. "Captain Seraphin, your resistance is futile. Join us and you might just survive the cycle." Seraphin rolled his eyes. "Not interested in becoming intergalactic slush, thanks." Corval's laughter echoed through the speakers, a sound that made Seraphin's skin crawl. "You cannot escape the spin. It will consume you." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Seraphin muttered, determination hardening his voice. "Euphoria, let's prepare for Plan B." "Plan B?" Euphoria asked, a hint of curiosity breaking through its monotone. "Yeah," Seraphin replied, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "Let's see if we can put a twist in their cycle." In the mess hall, Arla was finally getting a handle on the situation. The factions had settled into a disgruntled silence, each side glaring daggers at the other. "All right," Arla said, drawing everyone's attention. "Here's the deal. We need to work together to get through this. I don't care if you believe in cosmic laundry or alien hugs, but we're all on the ship together." Prophet Vyerks nodded, his expression contemplative. "Perhaps there is wisdom in unity, even if temporary." Oracle Kale raised a hand in agreement. "For now, let us focus on survival. Our beliefs can guide us, but they should not divide us when survival is at stake." Greg leaned back, arms crossed. "Fine, but after this I reserve the right to call you all batshit crazy." Jack smirked. "And I reserve the right to say I told you so when the universe spins us into enlightenment." Arla shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "Deal." "Now let's get back to work." The ship hummed with energy as the crew rallied, the divisions temporarily set aside in the face of a common enemy. The Ark Reverie might have been a ramshackle vessel, but it was their ramshackle vessel. On the bridge, Seraphin was in the zone, the kind of focus that came with equal parts desperation and inspiration. "Euphoria," he said. "Let's give them a surprise they won't forget." "Activating the countermeasures," the AI intoned, a hint of excitement, manufactured though it might have been creeping into its voice. The ship shuddered as the makeshift weapon was brought online, a pulse of energy designed to disrupt the cult's gravity weapon. It was a gamble, the kind of gambit only a captain with nothing left to lose would attempt. As the pulse fired, Seraphin held his breath, the bridge's silence punctuated only by the rhythmic hum of the ship's systems. The seconds stretched into eternity, each heartbeat a drumbeat of hope and fear. Then the view screen flickered, the gravity weapon's swirling vortex faltering, its energy dissipating like a deflated balloon. "We did it," Euphoria announced, the closest it ever came to sounding proud. Seraphin exhaled, the weight of the universe lifting, if only for a moment. "We're not out of the spin yet, but damn if that doesn't feel good." The ship erupted into cheers, the relief palpable, a momentary reprieve from the ever-present threat of annihilation. In the mess hall, Arla allowed herself a small smile, the tension in her shoulders easing. "Looks like we just dodged a cosmic bullet, folks." Greg chuckled, the sound tinged with disbelief. Guess the universe isn't done with us just yet. Jack gave a nod, his expression one of serene acceptance. Perhaps the cycle has more to teach us. As the Ark Reverie continued its journey through the stars, its crew united however temporarily, Captain Seraphin allowed himself a rare moment of hope. They'd survived against the odds, and for now that was enough. But as always in the dark expanse of space, nothing was certain. The spin of the universe continued, indifferent and unyielding, a reminder that their struggles were far from over. Yet for Seraphin and his ragtag crew, the fight was far from finished. They'd take on the universe one spin at a time, and maybe, just maybe, they'd come out the other side in one piece. If not, at least they'd have a hell of a story to tell, assuming anyone was left to listen. Captain Seraphin sat in his chair on the bridge, the kind of chair that squeaked every time he shifted weight like it was trying to tell him secrets. He didn't trust it, or anything else for that matter, especially not with the Ark Reverie in the clutches of another crisis. Euphoria, he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose, status report. Euphoria, the AI with the personality of a particularly bored accountant, responded with its usual lack of enthusiasm. We are experiencing unusual energy surges emanating from the gravity weapon. It appears to be fluctuating in intensity. Seraphin's fingers drummed on the armrest. Fluctuating how? Like a drunk trying to find their way home, or more like an impending hypernova? Closer to the second, Euphoria replied, a hint of something almost resembling concern creeping in. Maybe even AI had an instinct for self-preservation. The energy signatures suggest the surges could destabilize the weapon's core. Wonderful, Seraphin muttered. Another day in paradise. Down in engineering, Zorlin the engineer, a man who had never met a spanner he didn't love, was elbow-deep in an access panel. The lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced like they were having a party while he was busy trying to keep the ship from tearing itself apart. Zorlin, Seraphin's voice crackled through the calm. What's happening with those energy surges? Zorlin glanced at the mess of wires and circuits, a look of concentration on his grease-smudged face. Captain, these surges aren't just random spikes. They're like nothing I've seen before. Almost as if the ship's systems are being manipulated by an outside force. Meaning? Seraphin prompted, because speaking in complete sentences was apparently overrated in engineering. Meaning, Zorlin continued with the patience of someone explaining calculus to a toddler, that the weapon's energy is resonating with something on our ship. It's like it's feeding off something. Seraphin sighed. Of course it is. Why not? Just what are we unintentionally fueling this time? The cults, Captain, Zorlin said, his voice grave. Their belief-driven rituals are creating some kind of feedback loop, energizing the weapon. Seraphin rubbed his temples. Let me get this straight. The more fervently they worship their cosmic spin cycle, the more juice we're giving to the thing that's trying to turn us into space confetti. That's a colorful way to put it, but yes, Zorlin confirmed. Seraphin leaned back in his squeaky chair, which seemed to snicker at him in mechanical glee. Dealing with a gravity weapon was bad enough, but dealing with a weapon supercharged by misguided zealots, that was just his luck. All right, let's see if we can talk some sense into them before they pray us into oblivion, he said, though he knew full well it would be like trying to convince a cat that water was a good idea. Back in the mess hall, Prophet Vierks was mid-sermon, his voice a smooth river of cosmic rhetoric, while Oracle Kale nodded in sage agreement. The flock listened with rapt attention, the kind usually reserved for particularly juicy scandals or free beer. Brothers and sisters, Vierks intoned, the universe speaks through us. We are the conductors of its divine symphony. Symphony, Greg echoed under his breath to Arla, more like a cacophony of lunacy. Arla just sighed. Her patience was wearing thin, and she was almost out of eye rolls for the day. Excuse me, Prophet, she interrupted with her best I'm trying not to strangle anyone voice. I hate to break up the sermon, but your cosmic sing-along is about to get us all killed. Vierks paused, the picture of serene arrogance. We embrace our destiny, First Officer. The cycle will protect us. The cycle, Arla said flatly, is going to crush us if we don't stop supercharging that weapon with your, shall we say, enthusiasm. Oracle Kale raised an eyebrow, his voice smooth as honey. Perhaps there is a misunderstanding. Our rituals are meant to bring harmony, not destruction. Right, Arla replied, her tone dry as the Martian desert. And I'm a Zilthian in disguise. Look, the weapon is feeding off your rituals. We need to stop before it turns us into space dust. Vyerks frowned, an expression that would have been intimidating if it weren't for the fact that he still looked like a kid who'd just been told there was no Santa Claus. Then we must find a way to channel our energy constructively. Greg snorted. Yeah, like into a nice game of space bingo. Jack, ever the devoted convert, chimed in, eyes wide as if he discovered the secret to eternal life. Perhaps we can redirect our focus. Meditate on peace rather than power. That's great and all, Arla said, crossing her arms. But can you do it before we're all splattered across the cosmos like a bad Jackson Pollock? Back on the bridge, Seraphin was trying to figure out how to deal with this new wrinkle. Euphoria, any suggestions on how to stop these rituals from feeding the weapon? We could attempt to counter the frequency of the surges with a broadcast of our own, Euphoria proposed. Something disruptive, perhaps. Disruptive, huh? Seraphin mused, a mischievous glint in his eye. I wonder if we still have that old recording of galactic yodeling hits. Captain, Euphoria replied, that might just work. With a plan as outlandish as it was desperate, Seraphin patched through to the mess hall. Attention, everyone. We're going to try something a bit unconventional. Vyerks looked skeptical. What do you propose, Captain? Seraphin grinned, knowing full well the insanity of what he was about to say. We're going to drown out your cosmic resonance with yodeling. The room fell silent, a testament to just how bizarre things had gotten. Yodeling? Jack asked, incredulous. Yodeling, Seraphin confirmed. Trust me, it's the sonic equivalent of a cold shower. Arla shrugged, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. I suppose it's worth a shot. Can't be worse than what we're doing now. As the ship systems were reconfigured to broadcast the most obnoxious sound known to any species with ears, the crew braced themselves. The first notes crackled through the speakers, a cacophony of joyful noise that made nails on a chalkboard sound like a lullaby. The reaction was immediate. The energy surges began to waver, the weapon's power fluctuating like a bad signal on an old TV. It's working, Zorlin reported from engineering, his voice barely audible over the yodeling. The energy levels are stabilizing. The mess hall was a mix of disbelief and grudging acceptance, the cultists looking around as if expecting the universe to strike them down for their blasphemy. Remarkable, Oracle Kale admitted, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps there is more to unity than we imagined. Vyerks nodded, though his expression was one of reluctant concession. It seems the universe has a sense of humor. Yeah, Greg chimed in, cosmic comedy. Who knew? As the arc reverie settled into a slightly less chaotic rhythm, Seraphin allowed himself a moment of relief. They had managed to dampen the threat, at least for now. But he knew all too well that it was only a temporary fix, a band-aid on a gaping wound. Yet in the grand scheme of things, a moment of peace was all they could hope for. And maybe, just maybe, in the vast, indifferent expanse of the universe, that was enough. For now, at least, the arc reverie sailed on, its crew united in their determination to face whatever the cosmos hurled at them. One spin at a time. As the yodeling continued to echo through the ship, Seraphin leaned back in his chair, which squeaked in what could only be interpreted as begrudging approval. Well, he said to no one in particular, at least we know the universe has a sense of humor. And with that, the crew of the arc reverie hurtled through space, ever at odds with the universe, yet somehow still in the game. Captain Seraphin's day was going about as well as a Zilthian peace negotiation, long, tedious, and likely to end in violent misunderstanding. The arc reverie had somehow managed to lurch its way into a new crisis. The yodeling experiment was a temporary fix, like putting a band-aid on a severed limb, and now he had to deal with the cults again. Euphoria, what's the latest on our friendly neighborhood prophets? Seraphin asked, nursing a mug of what passed for coffee this far from Earth. It tasted like despair and burnt toast, but it was hot, and that was all he needed right now. Euphoria's voice, as dry as ever, crackled through the bridge speakers. Oracle Kale's followers have deciphered an ancient text, Captain. They believe it contains the key to controlling the gravity weapon. Of course they do, Seraphin muttered, glancing at the view screen which displayed the vast emptiness of space. It seemed to be mocking him with its vastness, the stars twinkling like smug little jerks. And let me guess, it's all part of some divine plan to save us from ourselves. Precisely, Euphoria replied, with all the enthusiasm of a wet sock. Their belief is that the text reveals a method to harness the weapon's power for benevolent purposes. Benevolent, Seraphin repeated, massaging his temples. That's what they said about fusion power before it blew half of New York into a crater. Meanwhile, down in engineering, Zorlin was busy wrestling with a panel that looked like it had been cobbled together by a drunken space mechanic. Wires dangled like tentacles, and the thing was sparking in a way that suggested it had a death wish. "How's it going down there, Zorlin?" Seraphin's voice buzzed through the comm. Zorlin grunted in response, wiping grease from his forehead with the back of his hand. "Oh, just peachy, Captain. If by peachy you mean trying not to get turned into a crispy critter by random energy surges. Any chance we can sabotage the weapon without blowing ourselves into the next dimension?" Seraphin asked, his tone dripping with the kind of optimism that knew it was about to get kicked in the teeth. "Possibly," Zorlin replied, shoving a wrench into a particularly stubborn bolt. "If we can isolate the feedback loop the cults are creating, we might be able to disrupt the weapon's core long enough to disable it. And how suicidal is that plan, on a scale of 1 to we're all gonna die horribly?" Zorlin chuckled, a sound that was half nervous, half maniacal. "Somewhere around we're all gonna die hilariously, if that helps." "Fantastic," Seraphin sighed. "Carry on." In the mess hall, things were heating up. Oracle Kale stood before his followers, the ancient text in hand like it was the holy grail of cosmic enlightenment. "Brothers and sisters," Kale began, his voice silky and authoritative, "we are on the brink of a new dawn. This text, this gift from the stars, gives us the power to steer our destiny. Steer it right into an asteroid," Greg whispered to Arla, who rolled her eyes so hard she might have pulled a muscle. "You sure this isn't just some ancient laundry list?" Arla asked Kale, crossing her arms in a way that said she wasn't buying any of his cosmic snake oil. Kale smiled, the kind of smile that had probably been the downfall of many a gullible soul. "This text is a map to the stars, a guide to wielding the forces of the universe." "Sounds like a great bedtime story," Arla said dryly. "But why do I get the feeling this is going to end with us all wearing matching cult robes and chanting spin cycle forever?" Vyerks, ever the picture of serene delusion, chimed in. "The cycle will protect us, Arla. We have divine guidance." "Divine guidance," she repeated, nodding as if considering it seriously before adding, "like that time we followed your divine guidance and ended up stranded on a moon with nothing but expired space rations and one busted shuttle." "That moon was a trial of faith," Jek interjected, his eyes shining with the fervor of the truly indoctrinated. "A trial of faith and gastrointestinal endurance," Arla corrected, patting Jek on the shoulder. "But hey, at least we learned the importance of checking expiration dates." Back on the bridge, Seraphin was trying to figure out how to prevent their imminent destruction without losing what little sanity he had left. "Euphoria, any updates?" "The followers of Oracle Kale are preparing a ceremony to activate the text's instructions," Euphoria reported. "They believe it will allow them to channel the weapon's energy safely." "Safely," Seraphin echoed, his voice rich with skepticism. "Just like I believe my ex-wife isn't plotting to sick the bounty hunters on me." As the mess hall prepared for the ceremony, Seraphin decided it was time to confront Oracle Kale directly. He made his way down, each step echoing in the corridor like the countdown to a particularly explosive fireworks display. The mess hall was buzzing with activity. Followers shuffled about, arranging candles and chanting softly in a language that sounded like a cat hacking up a hairball. "Oracle Kale," Seraphin called out, striding into the room with the confidence of a man who'd faced down interstellar tax collectors. "We need to talk." Kale looked up, unperturbed. "Captain, welcome. Have you come to witness the dawn of a new era? More like trying to prevent the dawn of a new apocalypse," Seraphin replied, folding his arms. "I've heard about your plan to control the weapon. I need you to understand just how dangerous this is." "The universe speaks through us," Kale insisted, spreading his arms wide as if to embrace the cosmos. "We are its chosen." "The universe also speaks through cosmic radiation," Seraphin shot back. "And that's not something you want to embrace unless you're keen on developing a few extra limbs." "Captain, our beliefs are strong," Kale said, his conviction unwavering. "We have deciphered the text, and it speaks of peace. Peace through superior firepower." "Wasn't that how the last great galactic war started?" Seraphin asked, raising an eyebrow. "Perhaps our understanding is limited," Kale admitted, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "But this is our chance to make things right." Seraphin sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I get it. We all want to believe in something bigger than ourselves. But if you're wrong, we're all going to find out what the afterlife looks like a lot sooner than we planned." Down in engineering, Zorlin was making progress. He jabbed a thumb-sized device into the console, causing the panel to hum ominously. "Captain," Zorlin's voice came through the comm, "I think I've found a way to scramble the weapon's power output. It'll be like throwing a wrench into a blender. If it doesn't blow up first," Seraphin muttered. "All right, let's prep for Phase 2 of Operation Don't Die Horribly." Zorlin nodded, though Seraphin couldn't see it. "Understood. Let's hope this works, because I've got a date with a bottle of something strong and a hammock once this is over." Back in the mess hall, Arla was trying to keep the atmosphere from turning into a full-blown rave. "All right, everyone, tone it down a notch. We're not trying to summon anything that can't be placated with catnip and a ball of yarn." Greg snickered. "I dunno, Arla. I think we should let them go full tilt. Might distract them long enough for us to pull the plug. Or get us all killed," she replied, rolling her eyes. "But hey, at least we'll go out with a bang, right?" The ceremony started, Kale leading the chants with the fervor of a man convinced he was about to become the universe's newest spokesperson. The text lay open before him, the alien symbols glowing softly under the light of a dozen flickering candles. Seraphin watched from the sidelines, every muscle tense as he waited for Zorlin's signal. The energy in the room was palpable, a mix of anticipation and the kind of dread usually reserved for final exams and dental appointments. And then, just when Seraphin was about to call it quits and start planning his own eulogy, Zorlin's voice came through the comm, loud and clear. "Captain, I've got the sequence ready. We can disrupt the feedback loop at your command." Seraphin exhaled, his relief tempered by the knowledge that this was very much a do-or-die situation. "All right, Zorlin, do it." In engineering, Zorlin hit the switch, and the Ark Reverie shuddered as if it had been punched in the gut by an angry asteroid. The lights flickered, the air crackled, and for a moment Seraphin could have sworn he heard the ship groaning in protest. The mess hall erupted into chaos. Followers stumbled, candles toppled, and Kale's chant faltered, his serene demeanor crumbling as the room was plunged into darkness. "What's happening?" Kale shouted, scrambling to keep his footing. "That," Seraphin said, catching his breath, "is us not dying." The energy surges that had threatened to tear the ship apart began to settle, the resonance ebbing away like a tide retreating from a battered shore. The weapon's core stabilized, the threat of catastrophic failure averted, at least for now. The cultists looked around, bewildered, their faith shaken but not broken. Vyerks, ever the optimist, managed a shaky smile. "Perhaps the universe has granted us a second chance." "Yeah," Greg said, clapping Vyerks on the back with a little more force than necessary. Or maybe it decided we're just not worth the trouble. As order slowly returned to the Ark Reverie, Seraphin allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. They'd survived another cosmic twist, but he knew better than to let his guard down. "All right, people," he called out, "let's get back to pretending we're not one misstep away from becoming a cautionary tale." The crew dispersed, the crisis averted but not forgotten. Seraphin returned to the bridge, taking his place in the squeaky chair that seemed to whisper promises of more chaos to come. "Euphoria," he said, gazing out at the stars once more. "Status, we're stable for now, Captain," Euphoria replied, its tone as flat as ever. "But I recommend we remain vigilant." "Vigilant," Seraphin echoed, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Oh, Euphoria, when have we ever been anything else?" And so the Ark Reverie continued its journey through the vast, uncaring universe, its crew bound by the tacit understanding that tomorrow would probably be just as disastrous as today. But for the moment they were alive, defying the odds with every breath. In the grand scheme of things, Seraphin mused, maybe that was all anyone could really ask for. To survive, to endure, to face the chaos with a smirk and a stubborn refusal to give in. "Here's to tomorrow," he murmured, toasting the stars with his mug of terrible coffee. "May it be slightly less horrible than today." The Ark Reverie was a lovely piece of engineering, if you were into things that looked like they were put together by a committee on their third bottle of synth whiskey. Outside its hull, stars blinked innocently, as if they weren't complicit in the madness unraveling within. The gravity weapon, a delightful bit of ancient alien tech, was starting to wake up, and it had all the grace of a toddler with a caffeine Roman 4. "Captain," Euphoria droned, her voice as lively as a funeral dirge, "gravity fluctuations are reaching critical levels. If unchecked, they could create a singularity event. In layman's terms," Seraphin mused, "we're about to be turned into a cosmic smoothie." First Officer Arla was by his side, eyes scanning the chaotic readouts. "Well, Captain, guess it's time to play everyone's favorite game, Who Wants to Be a Black Hole?" Seraphin managed a smirk. "I hear the grand prize is a lifetime supply of vacuum." The ship shuddered again, a reminder that the universe had little patience for their comedic timing. Down in the bowels of the ship, Zorlin was having a particularly spirited argument with a control panel that had decided to go on strike. "Listen here, you glorified toaster," Zorlin grumbled, wrench in hand like a medieval knight with a particularly unruly dragon. "I don't care what your union says, I'm not giving you a break." Jek, wrapped in his customary robes, floated nearby like a misplaced ghost at a seance. "Perhaps a prayer, Engineer Zorlin. The universe may grant us clarity." "Or a swift kick in the thrusters," Zorlin shot back. "I'd bet on the latter." Meanwhile, in the mess hall, Prophet Vierks and Oracle Kale were embroiled in a debate that could have doubled as a comedy routine, had it not been for the apocalyptic undertones. "We must embrace the cycle," Vierks insisted, eyes blazing with the fire of the hopelessly devoted. "It will shield us from harm." Kale snorted, a decidedly unholy sound for someone who claimed divine insight. "Like it shielded us from that moon fiasco. Your cycle's got more plot holes than a bad holo novel." "Enough." Seraphin's voice cut through the rising tide of lunacy. He felt like an actor in a tragicomedy that was teetering dangerously towards tragedy. "We need to work together or we'll all be space dust." Kale sneered, though it was more a grimace of exasperation. "And what brilliant plan do you propose, Captain?" "Pray to the cosmic washing machine." "Great idea," Seraphin said deadpan. "I'll put it on my list right after attempt to stop a ship-wide panic." But the panic was spreading faster than a bad internet meme. In the corridors, crew members scurried like ants whose hill had just been rudely kicked by the boot of fate. Factions formed, people chose sides, and someone had even set up a betting pool on who would come out on top, because if you're facing imminent destruction, why not make a quick buck? Greg, ever the opportunist, sidled up to Arla. "Hey Arla, what do you think? Vierks or Kale? I've got 50 credits on Kale flipping a table." I'm betting on us, Arla replied, her voice somehow both weary and defiant. Though I wouldn't say no to a miracle about now. The ship trembled again, lights flickering with the panicked rhythm of a dance party gone awry. Seraphin felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him, heavier than the gravity weapon that threatened to squash them all into a neat little package for the afterlife delivery service. Euphoria, he barked, give me options. Options include 1. Continued malfunction leading to potential annihilation, 2. Successful sabotage of the weapon, or 3. Immediate retreat though probability of survival is low. Thanks, Euphoria, Seraphin sighed. I feel much better now. The bridge was a flurry of activity. Consoles beeped accusingly as if blaming the crew for the current predicament. It was almost enough to make Seraphin nostalgic for the simpler days of dodging laser fire and negotiating with space pirates. Captain, Arla said, snapping him back to the present, we might have to consider a full-scale evacuation. Brilliant, Seraphin muttered. We'll just float around until the next passing freighter picks up our distress signal. Should take, a few centuries. An optimistic timeline, Arla noted. I give us half that. In engineering, Zorlin was making headway, though it felt more like he was trying to extinguish a wildfire with a water pistol. His seasoned hands worked over the console, every action a calculated risk in the dance of life and death. If this works, Zorlin muttered, I'll finally get that leave I never asked for. Jack hovered, still intoning prayers to whatever cosmic forces might be listening. Faith, Zorlin, it will see us through. Faith's great, but I'll take duct tape and spare parts any day, the engineer replied with a curt nod. Now pass me that stabilizer. Back in the mess hall, Vyerk's and Kale's argument had reached a fever pitch. Followers watched, caught between belief and incredulity, their faces masks of confusion and fear. Listen, Vyerks, Kale was saying, we can't just chant our way out of this. Your lack of faith is disturbing, Vyerks shot back, fingers clutching his pendant as if it were a lifeline. Disturbing is waking up to find your socks have gone missing in the middle of a space voyage. This is downright suicidal. Seraphin strode into the cacophony, his patience thinner than the atmospheric shielding they were about to test to its limits. Enough, he shouted, silencing the room. We need solutions, not sermons. Vyerks opened his mouth, but Seraphin cut him off. And no, spinning won't save us. The air was thick with tension, the kind that could be sliced with a butter knife and served as an appetizer. Seraphin turned to Kale, eyes hard with determination. You say you can control it. Fine, prove it. Kale blinked, momentarily caught off guard. I what? You heard me, Seraphin said, crossing his arms. Show us what your divine texts can really do. For a moment, Kale hesitated, the weight of his own words crashing down like an asteroid. But pride and desperation are powerful motivators, and Kale nodded. Fine, but if this goes sideways, it's on you. Trust me, Seraphin replied. Everything's already on me. The ceremony resumed, albeit with far less enthusiasm than before. The chanting was subdued, the flickering candles casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. The tension was palpable, the kind that crawled under your skin and set your nerves on edge. As Kale began to recite from the ancient texts, Seraphin watched, every muscle a taut wire ready to snap. He didn't trust Kale any more than he trusted the universe to play fair, but desperate times called for even more desperate measures. And then something shifted. The air felt different, charged with an energy that hummed through the ship's metal bones. The gravity weapon, a beast half awake, seemed to respond, its growls quieting to a low rumble. Captain, Zorlin's voice crackled through the calm, a thread of hope woven into the static. The fluctuations, they're stabilizing. A collective exhale swept through the mess hall, the relief so thick you could almost taste it. Vyerks and his followers looked on, faces a mixture of awe and disbelief, while Kale stood at the center, the unexpected hero of a story no one wanted to be a part of. Well, I'll be damned, Arla said quietly, a small smile breaking through the tension. The universe has a sense of humor after all. Seraphin didn't let himself relax, not yet. Euphoria status report. Gravity readings returning to normal parameters, Captain, the AI replied, its voice devoid of emotion but somehow comforting in its consistency. We have avoided catastrophe. For now, Seraphine murmured, ever the pessimist, because in space the only certainties were death, taxes, and the universe's endless capacity for chaos. As the crew began to disperse, the crisis momentarily averted, Seraphine turned his gaze back to the stars. They gleamed cold and distant, indifferent to the lives that danced on the edge of oblivion. "All right," he said, looking over his crew with a mixture of pride and exasperation. "Let's get back to pretending we know what we're doing." The laughter that followed was tired but genuine, a shared acknowledgement of their shared insanity. Because in the grand scheme of things, surviving another day in the void was worth a few laughs, and maybe a stiff drink. As the Ark Reverie sailed onward, its course set by the whims of fate and the stubbornness of its crew, Seraphine allowed himself a moment of peace. The universe might be a cruel, uncaring place, but at least they had each other, and the gallows humor to make even the darkest hour bearable. Here's to survival, he thought, raising an imaginary glass to the stars. May we continue to defy the odds, stumble through chaos, and laugh in the face of doom. After all, in a universe that seemed determined to wipe them out, what better weapon could they wield than laughter? Zorlin was neck-deep in a wiring cluster that looked like an angry octopus had decided to make the Ark Reverie its new home. He muttered curses under his breath, each one a prayer to the sacred order of engineers. Across the room, the control panel blinked defiantly, as if daring him to try his luck. "Hey, Zorlin," Seraphine called from the entrance, his voice tinged with a mix of hope and desperation. "Got any miracles up your sleeve, or do I need to start drafting my will?" Zorlin emerged from the wiring, his hair a mess of static-charged chaos. "Only miracle here is that this ship's still in one piece, but I might have stumbled onto something." Seraphine's interest piqued. "Oh, do tell. Will it save us or just delay the inevitable?" "Bit of both," Zorlin said, wiping his hands on a rag that was more grease than fabric. "The gravity weapon's power source is responding to certain frequencies. It's almost like—" he hesitated, searching for a metaphor that didn't involve oversized toasters or lethal kitchen appliances. "Like it's jamming to a tune." Seraphine raised an eyebrow. "What, are you suggesting we serenade the damn thing?" "Close enough," Zorlin replied, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. "I think human creativity might be the key. Music, art, whatever you call that thing Jack does with his nose, anything that messes with rhythm seems to unsettle the power core's energy." Seraphine blinked, absorbing the idea like a shot of cheap whiskey. "So you're saying we need to get everyone on board and throw the weirdest concert in the galaxy?" "Pretty much," Zorlin said, shrugging. "It's either that or wait for the weapon to decide it's time for a cosmic performance of how to create a singularity in 3 easy steps." Seraphine nodded, the plan forming like a storm cloud ready to unleash. "All right then, let's gather the factions. If we're gonna save this rust bucket, we'll need every crazy cultist, dubious oracle, and overconfident prophet on board." Back in the mess hall, the tensions were thicker than a bureaucrat's skull, but necessity has a way of cutting through the fog of human pettiness. Prophet Vierks and Oracle Kale stood at opposite ends, their followers hanging on every word like spectators at a gladiatorial match. Seraphine clapped his hands, drawing reluctant attention. "Listen up, folks. I know we're not exactly one big happy family, but we need to work together if we're gonna make it out of this cosmic joke alive." Kale crossed his arms, skepticism etched on his face. "And what do you propose, a group hug? Because I left my singing Kumbaya skills back on Earth." "Close," Seraphine replied with a grin. Zorlin's figured out a way to disrupt the weapon's power source. It involves music, art, and a healthy dose of human creativity. So, we're gonna put on the strangest show the universe has ever seen." Vierks frowned, clearly not a fan of improvisational arts. "You expect us to fight alien technology with culture? Well, it beats the hell out of standing around bickering. Arla interjected, her voice a sharp blade of practicality. "Unless you all prefer getting sucked into a black hole." The room fell silent, the weight of impending doom settling like an unwelcome guest. Slowly, grudgingly, heads began to nod. Even in the depths of space, survival had a way of uniting the most unlikely of allies. Seraphin gestured to Zorlin. "All right, Zorlin, you're the maestro. What do we need?" Zorlin took center stage, a reluctant conductor of this symphony of lunacy. "We need musicians, artists, even anyone who can keep a beat. The system's sensitive to rhythm, so the more diverse the input, the better." There was a moment of awkward shuffling before crew members started stepping forward. A few with guitars cobbled from spare parts, a couple with harmonicas they swore they weren't hiding, and Jack, who insisted on demonstrating his interpretative dance moves. "All right then," Seraphin said, the hint of a grin on his face. "Let's show this alien tech what humanity's made of: chaos, creativity, and a bit of insanity." The preparations began in earnest, the mess hall transforming into a makeshift arena for this unprecedented spectacle. Instruments were tuned, makeshift stages erected, and a sense of camaraderie began to bloom amidst the chaos. Vyerks, ever the skeptic, cornered Seraphin as the preparations continued. "Do you really think this will work, Captain? Or have we finally lost it completely?" Seraphin shrugged, a gleam of mischief in his eyes. "At this point, losing it might be our best shot. Besides, it's not like we have anything left to lose." As the first chords echoed through the ship, the gravity weapon's growl softened, almost purring in response. It was a good sign, though Seraphin wouldn't dare let optimism ruin his carefully cultivated cynicism. The performance began in earnest, a cacophony of sounds that would have made even the most avant-garde artists wince. Guitars strummed with vigor, harmonicas wailed like banshees, and somewhere in the mix, Jack twirled with unearthly grace, his robes a blur of motion. Zorlin monitored the readings from engineering, his eyes glued to the fluctuating energy levels. "It's working," he announced, his voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. "The weapon's power source is destabilizing." The mess hall erupted in cheers, the sound mingling with the music in a discordant harmony. Even Vyerks and Kale found themselves drawn into the raucous celebration, their rivalry momentarily set aside in favor of survival. Seraphin watched the scene unfold, a strange warmth settling in his chest. It wasn't just relief at the crisis averted, but a newfound appreciation for the resilience, the sheer stubbornness of humanity in the face of impossible odds. "Captain," Arla said, sidling up beside him with a grin. "This might actually work." "It damn well better," Seraphin replied, though the tension in his shoulders had eased. "Otherwise, I'll finally have to start that cosmic washing machine cult Vyerks keeps talking about." The laughter that followed was genuine, a release of the pent-up fear and uncertainty that had gripped them for far too long. In that moment, the crew of the Ark Reverie became something more than a disparate group of individuals. They were a family, bound together by their shared insanity and determination. As the final notes of the impromptu concert faded into silence, Zorlin's voice crackled over the comm again. "Captain, the weapon's power levels are stabilizing. We've bought ourselves some time." Seraphin allowed himself a rare smile, the weight of leadership momentarily lifted. "Good work, everyone. Looks like we're not gonna be space dust today." The mess hall erupted in cheers once more, the sound echoing through the ship with a vitality that defied the vast emptiness of space outside. They had danced on the edge of oblivion and lived to tell the tale. But as the celebrations continued, Seraphin knew their work wasn't done. The universe was a cruel mistress, and while they had won this round, there were still battles to be fought, challenges to be met. "All right," he said, raising his voice above the din. "Let's keep this ship together and show the universe what we're made of. We've got a long way to go, but we'll get there." Together, as the crew dispersed, the crisis temporarily averted, Seraphin cast one last look at the stars. The universe might be vast and uncaring, but at least they had each other, and the audacity to laugh in the face of doom. "Here's to us," he murmured, raising an imaginary glass to the cosmos. "The mad, the brave, the hopelessly optimistic. May we continue to defy gravity and fate, one crazy idea at a time." And with that, the Ark Reverie sailed on, its course set by the whims of fate and the indomitable spirit of its crew. They were a band of misfits, unlikely heroes in a universe that seemed hell-bent on wiping them out. But as long as they had each other, they knew they had a fighting chance. After all, in a universe full of chaos and darkness, laughter was their greatest weapon. As soon as the impromptu concert wrapped up, Captain Seraphin found himself back in the engineering bay, the heart of the Ark Reverie still making ominous thumps. It was like a heartbeat that skipped a beat every now and then, reminding him that they were one power surge away from being cosmic confetti. Zorlin was in his element, fingers racing across controls with a determination that bordered on mania. "You know," he said without looking up, "I never imagined that my life's work would come down to holding a ship together with music and dance." Seraphin snorted, leaning against the wall. "Well, if it makes you feel any better, I never thought I'd command a ship of cultists and lunatics. Yet here we are. They say necessity is the mother of invention," Zorlin replied with a smirk. "I guess desperation's the weird uncle nobody talks about." Seraphin chuckled, the sound unexpectedly comforting even amidst the chaos. "What's the status?" "The weapon's power source is still twitching like a caffeine addict on their fifth cup, but it's holding," Zorlin said. "We've managed to stabilize it with our little symphony of madness. For now." "Good," Seraphin said, then waved a hand as if brushing away the shadow of optimism. "But if that thing so much as hiccups, let me know. I've got a date with the universe's most stubborn prophet and oracle." He left Zorlin to his tangled web of wires and headed for the mess hall, his mind a buzz of cynicism and reluctant hope. The remnants of the concert were still scattered about, hastily abandoned instruments, overturned chairs, a lingering smell of sweat and determination. Prophet Vierks and Oracle Kale stood at the edge of the room, surrounded by their respective followers who now mingled like awkward teenagers at a forced family reunion. "Prophet Vierks, Oracle Kale," Seraphin began, adopting his best let's not blow up today tone. "I think we need to have a little chat about channeling your followers, eccentric energies." Vierks inclined his head with the gravitas of someone who'd read too much into their own press. "The universe has shown us a path, Captain, a new cycle." Kale rolled his eyes, arms crossed. "What he means is, we're ready to help, but don't expect us to start holding hands and singing Give Peace a Chance." "I wouldn't dare," Seraphin assured, a grin tugging at his lips. "I just need you two to use your considerable influence to keep everyone focused. The gravity weapon's power source is still volatile, and we might need another round of creative chaos." Vierks nodded solemnly. "The cult of the endless spin stands ready to assist in this most sacred of endeavors." "I'll rally my followers," Kale added. "But if anyone pulls a muscle trying to interpretive dance their way to salvation, that's on you." "Deal," Seraphin said, feeling the weight of leadership press a little less heavily on his shoulders. "Let's keep this ship from becoming a permanent part of the vast void, shall we?" As the unlikely trio worked to marshal the crew's creativity, Seraphin couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of it all. Yet, there was a strange beauty in this madness. An orchestra of misfits defying the laws of the universe with nothing more than duct tape, hope, and a hearty dose of stubbornness. Back in engineering, Zorlin kept a vigilant eye on the readings. Jek hovered nearby, offering unsolicited advice in the form of cryptic mutterings and the occasional prayer to deities whose names were probably best left unspoken. "You know, Jek," Zorlin said as he adjusted a particularly stubborn wire, "if we survive this, I might just attend one of your services." Jek beamed, looking like a ghostly apparition of goodwill. "Ah, Zorlin, faith is a powerful thing. Sometimes it takes a cosmic crisis for the light to shine through. Or maybe it just takes the threat of becoming space dust," Zorlin replied dryly, but not unkindly. Meanwhile, in the mess hall, the crew gathered once more. The makeshift stage stood ready, a testament to human ingenuity, though it looked like it might collapse if someone sneezed too hard. Seraphin climbed onto the stage, tapping the mic with a practiced air of a man who delivered more bad news than good. "All right, folks, we've had our fun, but the show's not over yet. We need to keep the energy going, keep that power source on its toes." Arla stepped forward, a guitar slung over her shoulder. "And remember, no pressure. Just the fate of us all resting on your artistic talents." The laughter that followed was ragged, the kind that only comes from people who've faced death and decided to laugh in its face just to spite it. As the second concert began, the gravity weapon's growls turned into a low hum, almost content. The crew threw themselves into the performance with abandon, each note and beat a defiance against the cold, indifferent universe. Vierks and Kale, now finding common ground in mutual survival, coordinated their followers with surprising efficiency. Under their guidance, the factions melded into a cohesive force, each member bringing something unique to the mix. Seraphin watched from the sidelines, a bemused expression on his face. It was chaos, beautifully orchestrated chaos, and damn if it didn't feel like they were making progress. The mess hall pulsed with energy, a heartbeat of resilience against the vast emptiness outside. As the music swelled, Zorlin's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, it's working. The fluctuations are stabilizing, and the power source is reacting like it just discovered its favorite genre." Seraphin let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Good work, Zorlin. Keep monitoring. If that thing so much as sneezes, I want to know." "You got it, Captain," Zorlin replied, and the line went dead. The performance continued, a testament to the crew's tenacity. Each song, each dance was a celebration of their survival, a middle finger to the uncaring cosmos. Finally, as the last notes faded into silence, the weapon's power source settled into a steady rhythm. The crisis was averted, at least for now. The mess hall erupted into cheers and applause, a cacophony of relief and triumph. For a moment, they weren't just a crew on a doomed ship. They were a family, odd, dysfunctional, but a family nonetheless. Seraphin looked around at his crew, the sense of pride swelling in his chest almost as alien as the stars outside. They had done it. Against all odds, they had pulled together and saved themselves with nothing more than their creativity and the willingness to embrace the ridiculousness of their situation. Arla joined him, her guitar still in hand and a grin on her face. "Well, Captain, looks like we live to see another day." "Yeah," Seraphin replied, the relief washing over him like a tide. "Let's hope the universe gives us a break from the cosmic jokes for a while." As the crew celebrated, Seraphin felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Prophet Vierks, a rare smile on his face. "Captain, I've seen many things in my time, but today was truly a miracle." "Miracle, insanity, there's a fine line," Seraphin said with a chuckle. "But I'll take it." Oracle Kale joined them, arms crossed but eyes twinkling with amusement. "You might have a point, Captain." Who knew that a lunatic and a heretic could work so well together? Desperation makes strange allies, Seraphin quipped, feeling the camaraderie settle like a warm blanket. As the celebrations wound down, the crew dispersed to their duties, the ship slowly returning to its usual rhythm. The crisis had passed, the gravity weapon's threat neutralized by the most unexpected of solutions. Seraphin watched them go, a smile playing on his lips. They had faced the brink of destruction together, and in doing so discovered the strength that lay in unity. "Here's to us," Seraphin murmured, raising an imaginary glass once more. "The mad, the bold, and the hopelessly optimistic. We may be flawed, but we'll keep fighting, keep surviving, no matter what the universe throws our way." And with that, the Ark Reverie continued its journey through the stars, guided by the indomitable spirit of its crew, a testament to human adaptability, a beacon of hope in the cold, uncaring void. The Ark Reverie drifted through the void, a veritable collection of duct-taped dreams and half-baked hope. In the aftermath of the makeshift concert, the ship's inhabitants were riding a high that was as surreal as it was temporary. The crisis had been averted, at least for now, and the mess hall still bore the signs of its recent transformation from a scene of barely contained chaos to an impromptu stage for survival. Captain Seraphin stood in the middle of it all, feeling like the universe's most reluctant ringmaster. The mess hall was buzzing with the odd mix of post-crisis euphoria, relieved laughter, and the lingering smell of sweat, like a particularly intense yoga retreat gone awry. Arla, ever the efficient counterpart to Seraphin's sardonic leadership, sidled up beside him. She surveyed the room with a critical eye. "Well, this is a sight," she said, gesturing at the scene of disarray. "Looks like a tornado hit a carnival." Seraphin grinned, the expression more habit than genuine amusement. "Yeah, but at least it's our carnival. Could have ended a lot worse." "True, but now what?" Arla asked, crossing her arms. "We can't just keep hosting concerts every time something breaks. We'll run out of tunes." Seraphin shrugged. "Maybe we write a new genre, cosmic crisis rock. Besides, if it comes to that, we can always ask Euphoria for a playlist. I'm sure she's got a few existential dirges on file." Arla snorted, no small feat given the direness of their situation hours ago. "I'd rather listen to Jack's sermons." Speaking of Jack, he was doing his best impression of a humble sage, moving through the crowd like a spiritual advisor who'd just seen the holy light in a faulty control panel. His followers, less like disciples and more like a bunch of toddlers around a piñata, hung on his every cryptic word. Seraphin watched the spectacle unfold with a mix of amusement and disbelief. "Is it just me, or is Jack starting to look like a space-age televangelist?" Arla chuckled. "If he starts talking about donations, I'm out. I'm not funding his next shrine to the almighty circuit board." Meanwhile, in a corner of the mess hall, Prophet Vierks and Oracle Kale were embroiled in a discussion, their voices low but their gestures animated. The temporary alliance between their factions seemed to be holding, though Seraphin suspected it was more due to exhaustion than any newfound camaraderie. Vierks caught Seraphin's eye and waved him over. "Captain," he intoned, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 self-important lectures. "A moment of your time." "Sure, Prophet," Seraphin replied, his tone flippant. "Always eager to hear the latest in cosmic revelations." Kale rolled his eyes, his expression one of perpetual skepticism. "Vierks here was just about to enlighten me on the true nature of the spin. Personally, I think he just likes the sound of his own voice." Vierks ignored the jab with the patience of a saint or a very well-practiced politician. "Captain, I've been thinking. This recent miracle, as I'd call it, it demonstrates the potential for unity. Perhaps we could forge a new path where our beliefs don't divide us but enhance our survival." Seraphin shot a sidelong glance at Kale. "What do you think, Oracle? Are we on the verge of a new age of enlightenment, or just desperate enough to pretend we are?" Kale shrugged, a crooked smile playing on his lips. "Well, we didn't explode, so that's a start. But sure, let's say we embrace this unity. I'll even let Vierks take the lead in the next interpretive dance." Vierks nodded solemnly. "Our beliefs can coexist, Captain. We managed to stabilize the ship together after all. Imagine what else we could achieve." Seraphin was about to respond when Zorlin's voice crackled over the comms, the sound like gravel in a blender. "Captain, status update from engineering. The power source is stable, but I wouldn't advise letting your guard down just yet. It's like a cat with a grudge. Looks calm now, but it might decide to scratch your eyes out later." "Thanks for the delightful imagery, Zorlin," Seraphin replied. "Keep an eye on it. We're still trying to convince everyone here that unity won't end in a fistfight." "Understood, Captain. And if Jack starts handing out robes, let me know. I've always wanted to try on a cult chic look." With a chuckle, Seraphin turned his attention back to Vierks and Kale. "All right, gentlemen, looks like we've got some time to work on this new alliance, but let's keep it realistic. If things go sideways again, we'll need more than good intentions and a catchy tune." Kale's eyes twinkled with mischief. Agreed. Although, let's face it, a catchy tune never hurts. As the unlikely trio continued their negotiations, the rest of the crew began to find their own ways to decompress. The mess hall, now more of a social hub than a crisis center, echoed with laughter and the clinking of makeshift drinking containers. It wasn't exactly a celebration, but it was close enough for a bunch of misfits who'd just dodged annihilation. Seraphin watched them, the scene both heartening and absurd. Who would have thought that the end of the world, or at least their small corner of it, could bring people together in a way that no amount of diplomacy ever had? Zorlin's voice pulled him back from his thoughts. Captain, one more thing. I've been tinkering with the power fluctuations, and I think we might be able to actually harness them, use them to our advantage. Really? Seraphin arched an eyebrow. And here I thought you were just keeping the lights on. Well, I won't lie, it's mostly guesswork and a prayer to the machine gods, but if we can pull it off, we might just turn this whole mess into something useful. Seraphin let out a low whistle. That's the spirit, Zorlin. If we're going to be stuck in this cosmic hellhole, we might as well make the most of it. Exactly, Zorlin replied. I'll keep you posted, and if I invent a new form of energy by accident, I'll be sure to name it after you, or maybe after that concert. Crisis rock power has a nice ring to it. With the conversation over, Seraphin allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. They'd come a long way from the ragtag crew, barely managing to stay afloat amidst the chaos of space. Now, with the crisis behind them, there was a real chance to build something lasting, if not a utopia, then at least a functioning society. A voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. It was Jack, looking uncharacteristically serious. Captain, if I may. Sure, Jack, Seraphin said, bracing for the philosophical diatribe. What's on your mind? The mysteries of the universe or just tomorrow's breakfast? Jack smiled, though his eyes were serious. It's about what we've achieved here. You've shown us that even in darkness there's room for light. And maybe, just maybe, there's room for faith, real faith, not just in old gods or new ones, but in each other. Seraphin scratched his chin, pretending to mull it over. You make it sound like we're founding a new religion, the church of not blowing up. Jack laughed, a sound as light as it was genuine. Perhaps, or just a community of survivors. Either way, I think we've got a lot to look forward to. As Jack wandered off, presumably to spread the good word, or at least a mildly hopeful one, Seraphin found himself nodding. Maybe there was something to this unity after all. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy, but it was something. The Ark Reverie continued its journey, a little steadier now, its course set along the uncertain path of survival and adaptation. With newfound alliances and a spirit of resilience, the crew of misfits had done more than just survive. They'd thrived in their own wonderfully chaotic way. Seraphin took a deep breath, the ship's vibrations a comforting hum beneath his feet. It wasn't much, but it was home. A ship full of dreamers and lunatics and everything in between. And together, they'd face whatever the universe decided to throw their way next. He raised an imaginary glass, a private toast to the crew's mad, beautiful tenacity. Here's to us, he murmured, echoing his earlier sentiment. The weird, the wonderful, and the hopelessly optimistic. Because if there was one thing Seraphin had learned, it was this. In the grand scheme of things, sometimes all you needed to keep going was a good laugh, a little ingenuity, and a whole lot of stubbornness. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change the universe, or at least their tiny corner of it.